But I'd like to just put you in the picture, because it's only 3 weeks since I was away. And something I learned about our RAAF history, I think we should all be very, very proud of. So the subject matter of my report to you today is what happened in London on the 26th of March. And those of you who don't understand what actually happened, in the Second World War, the contribution Australia made with its Air Force was enormous. 11 squadrons were seconded to the RAF for the duration of the Second War. And that's what this is all about. And I'm sorry I'm going to read, but I don't want to miss anything because this is too important. The church chosen was St Clement Danes. I'd never heard of it. I apologise if I should have. But for those of you who do, it's a lovely old church. And I'm going to tell you what there is in the background. St Clement Danes is a church in the city of Westminster, London. It is situated outside the Royal Courts of Justice on the Strand. The current building was completed in 1682 by Sir Christopher Wren and it now functions as the central church of the Royal Air Force. The church was almost destroyed by German bombs during the London Blitz of the 10th of May 1941. The outer walls, the tower and the steeple survived the bombing, but the interior was gutted. I actually have pictures of this. As a consequence, the Royal Air Force, following an appeal for funds by the Royal Air Force, the church was completely restored and reconsecrated on the October the 19th, 1958 to become the central church of the Royal Air Force. And they have a great big banner up on the front to prove that. Services are regularly held to commemorate prominent occasions, and this was a very prominent occasion of the RAAF and its associated organisations. There are also features throughout and outside the building commemorating people and units of the RAF. The history of the church, and I'm going to ad-lib here, is around about in the year 1000. This was a church then, because you'll hear evidence of that fact. The first church on the site was reputedly founded by Danes living nearby in the 9th century. The location on the river between the City of London and the future site of Westminster was home to many Danes. I didn't know that, by the way. At a time when half of England was Danish. Being a seafaring race, the Danes named the city the church they built after St Clement, patron saint of mariners. King Harold Harefoot was buried there in March 1040. After his body was disinterred by his briefly usurped brother, Arthur Canute, and thrown in the marshes bordering the Thames. Outside the church stand the statues of two of our world's most famous seers, and we in the Air Force do remember them, Arthur or Bomber Harris and Hugh Dowding, who conducted it, his side of the fighters. The memorials, which we'll now go over, we show the inside. See the floor short? This is about that. The floor of the church is Welsh slate, is inscribed with the badges of over 800 RAF command groups, stations, squadrons and other formations. Near the entrance door is a ring of the badges of Commonwealth Air Forces surrounding the badge of the RAF. A memorial to the Polish airmen and squadrons who fought in the defence of the United Kingdom and the liberation of Europe in World War II is positioned on the floor on the north side, and books listing the names of all the RAF personnel who have died in the service, as well as those American airmen. And those of you again may not know, but there's a general running of American airmen who came well before America got into the war to serve with the RAF. That is the picture of the self. Whether the ones at the back or not, I don't know, but it's a beautiful old church, and it's right in the heart and straight opposite the Australia House, where the RAAF had their headquarters. The inside of the church, as you can see, is dramatic. The floor has the 800 tiles, and these are all in the shape of the external part of our badge crests. And what actually happens is the plaques that are dedicated are the centres. These also have to be submitted to the School of or Council of Heraldry. Next fellow is the chap who looked after us all, Air Vice Marshal Geoffrey Brown, served with 3 Squadron, and those of you who might like to know that. The next one is Group Captain Peter Norford, who I think a lot of people here would know. Peter is now the Group Captain Liaison Officer in the RAAF. The next is the Old Fliers group. Gathering of veterans, of course I'm in the shelter there, but you'll find we've moved it around so that we can give you a look in case there is anyone, because there were about 30 veterans attended, one pretty well for each of the squadrons that are involved, and more about that later. The next one is the gathering of Westerners, veterans also, and that's the back of Peter Norford. He was our Master of Ceremonies. The first is one of our old squadrons, number 3 squadron. Originally formed in 1925, 3 squadron deployed to Egypt in the July of 40, initially flying Gauntlets, Gladiators and Lysanders, then Hurricanes, Tomahawks, Kittyhawks and Mustangs. 3 squadron played critical roles in the invasion of Syria, the defeat of the Axis forces in Tunisia, and operations in Sicily and Italy. 3 squadron was the highest scoring British command Commonwealth squadron in the Mediterranean theatre. 3 squadron disbanded in Point Cook in July 46 and reformed in 48, operating to this day. The squadron painted a Southern Cross on its rudders, still used. 3 squadrons suffered 90 casualties, and its personnel were decorated with 3 Distinguished Service Orders, 20 Distinguished Flying Crosses, 5 with bars, a Military Cross, and 9 Distinguished Flying Medals. David Minchin, I think we know David Minchin here, don't we? From 3 Squadron was the representative for them. And as I mentioned earlier on, Air Vice Marshal Brown was a member. The next squadron is my own squadron. 450 Squadron, nicknamed Desert Harassers, was one of the most famous RAAF squadrons at the Second World War. 450 was formed at Williamtown in February 41, fought in the Middle East with 260 Squadron, Royal Air Force, on Hurricanes, then Egypt using Kittyhawks and the Western Desert in the ground attack and close support role. Just as it was re-equipped with Mustangs, 450 was disbanded at Lavarino, Italy in August of 45. 450 lost 63 personnel. The squadron was awarded 2 DSOs, 20 DFCs and 3 bars, 6 DFMs and 1 military medal. And from our squadron there was Jack Bissett, Alan Buckman, Jack Doyle, Evan James and myself. 451 Squadron was formed at Bankstown in February 41, equipped with Hawker Hurricanes and Lysanders. The squadron supported British Commonwealth operations in the Western Desert from July 41 until January 42. After North Africa, 451 operated in Syria, Egypt and re-equipped with Spitfires in Corsica and Southern Europe. 451 deployed to the UK in December 44 and was employed on fighter sweeps and ground attack, including B-2 rocket launch sites, despite initial plans that it would be part of the occupation forces in Europe after war. 451 was disbanded in January 46. 451 lost 28 personnel as awarded 5 DFCs and 1 BAR. With us today from 451, Joseph Barrington, John Evans, Sydney Handsaker and Lindsay Richards. 452 Squadron was the first Australian squadron to form in Britain in the Second World War. As part of 11 Group Flying Spitfires, 452 operated from airfields in southeastern Britain, becoming one of the most successful squadrons in fighter command. 452 relocated to Richmond, New South Wales and then the Northern Territory, followed by operations in the Dutch East Indies, Morotai, Tarakan, Ballypapan, and 450 disbanded on the 17th of November 45. They were awarded 6 DFCs and BAR, 1 Military Cross, 1 DFM, and they had 49 killed in action. And the representatives were Ted Sly and Peter Bullock. 454 formed at Williamtown in 41. 454 was disbanded in July 41 with its personnel dispersed between the RAAF's 456, 457 and 458 squadrons. 454 was then reformed in September 42 in Palestine with initial operations in Iran. In January 43, 454 redeployed to Palestine, then the Mediterranean for operations using Morton Baltimores in Italy during 44, 40 and 45, earned a reputation for its efficiency despite Italy's climatic extremes. 454 disbanded at Villa Alba in August of 45. They had 60 casualties and 9 distinguished flying crosses. From today, they visited, at least it was Lennon Barnston, Ken Rimmer and Doug Roberts. 457 formed at Badgington in Coventry, England in June 41. Initially supported by the RAAF force, but with Australian pilots 457 through Spitfires as part of 9 Group of Fighter Command in mid-42. 457 redeployed to Red Hill near London within 11 Group, conducting patrols, providing bomber escort and sweeps over France and Belgium. 457 withdrew from operations in Britain in May 42, deployed to Australia, returning to frontline service in January 43 with Spitfires, and operated in defence of Darwin, and then in support of land operations throughout the Dutch East Indies and Borneo. With its distinctive grey-green Spitfires, it became known as the Grey Nurse Squadron. I gather they mean grey nurse sharks, naturally. Painting its aircraft with distinctive sharks mounts, squadron disbanded on the 7th of November 45. 25 killed in operations and 8 DFCs. 458 Squadron formed at Williamtown in July 41, then deployed to home on Spalding Moor, United Kingdom, and equipped with Wellingtons, commenced strategic bombing operations over German-occupied Europe in October. In January 42, they moved to the Middle East, a rather chaotic affair, and finally reformed in September 458. Primary role was attacking enemy shipping in the Mediterranean, by now operating because of Corsica and Italy. Squadron supported the Allied invasion of southern France, ended up in Gibraltar in January 45, escorting shipping and hunting submarines. They disbanded in June 45, 141 casualties of which there were 3 DFC. The attendants, Leon Armstrong, Jack Christensen, Bill McFadden and John Ringwood. 459 Squadron was formed in the Middle East in February 42, initially with flying Hudsons and Blenheims. Finally moving to an all-Hudson fleet, their main roles were interdict German shipping and escort Allied shipping across the eastern Mediterranean. December 42, they moved to Libya, continuing the escort and anti-submarine role in 44. The Venturas were replaced with Baltimores, and the squadron moved to Palestine in February 45. Moved to UK, converted to Wellingtons, but was disbanded in April 45. They had 53 casualties, 1 Order of the British Empire, 7 distinguished flying crosses, and 1 distinguished flying medal. The members attending were Tom Hodgson and Brian. 462 Squadron, Royal Air Force, was formed at Fayed, Egypt on the 6th of September 42, using Halifaxes and with many RAAF personnel in the squadron. They were attacking shipping in harbours in the Mediterranean. 4 was formerly United. They had 38 Australian casualties, 1 distinguished service order, 18 DFCs, 1 continuous gallantry medal, and 4 DFM. 464 Squadron was formed at Feltwell in September 42. They were employed in escort missions over newly liberated Europe for VIPs, including British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, Crown Prince Olaf of Norway, General Alfred Jodl, who signed the surrender agreement for Germany in Berlin. 102 casualties, 53 of whom were Australians, 14 distinguished flying crosses and 3 DFMs. Representing them, they didn't have any representative, unfortunately. 466 was formed in October 42. They were really mostly a transport squadron, heaven forbid, in May 45, but how important they were, people who had them come from rescue them will know only too well. The regional 466 squadron, Charles Davey, Dr. Arnold Derrington, Harry King and Stan Parker. Last one. This is just a quick show of my own squadron's in the entrance to the church, and the rig is laid on top of it. Jack Bissett is one of our old flyers who caught up with us. He lives on the Isle of Wight and came specially to see us. That's all the squadrons. There were 11 squadrons seconded to the RAAF. I'd like to say thank you to all and each and every one of you. Would you like to show a very warm acclamation to London for the wonderful hospitality they gave the 11 squadrons? They were really magnificent. Thank you all.